Hi there. First off, let me sort of apologise actually for the dark, brooding, gothic lighting in this video. This is as bright as my webcam goes, and really is at the mercy of natural light. I mean, it is absolutely bloody awful today, so no light. So sorry about that. Anyway, thank you very much for the response. I really appreciated it. I mean, it's quite a long response. In depth, detailed. I like talking to religious people about their faith. I am an atheist, but I don't like to talk to them just like to convert them or something like that. Convert them to atheism. I think I'm not interested in that. It's just the discussion of ideas. Now, first off, let me say you essentially repeated the arguments that Cobain put in favour of the whole virgin part of Isaiah, except you expanded on them and went into quite a lot more depth. I mean, his video was quite short and pithy. Yours was kind of like the long version, and I appreciated it. And I'll concede that you're probably right. Cobain's probably right. Isaiah does actually refer to a virgin, not just a young woman who isn't a virgin. There are some technical points we could argue on, but I'll accept that. I will accept that it refers to a virgin. I don't accept the argument about Emmanuel, though. I mean, I've left some some text comments to this effect, but I thought I might as well say them as well. I mean, I don't think the meanings of Emmanuel and Jesus are sufficiently similar. I mean, you got to understand that we're used to a totally different system of names in our society. James, Jack, John. They even ones that sound similar are quite different, and names themselves don't tend to have any inherent meaning unless you look them up in a book. But in Old English, for instance, in the Old English period, people, particularly members of higher classes, would have names that were compounds. It'd be like noble wolf. So you'd have the same elements, the same very limited stock of elements popping up again and again. You'd have Ed. I can't remember what that means. Sorry. You'd have Athel, which is Ethel now, which means noble. You'd have elements like wolf, meaning wolf. Bert, which means bright. Rick, which means rule or domain, and so on and so forth. I mean, read or read, which means like counsel, advice, again and again and again. So you end up with like Alfred, elf read, elf advice, Alfric, Alf Wolf, and Ethel Wolf, and all these wolves and all these Ethels, and Edgar and Edmund and Edric and Edwy. I mean, the same elements repeated over and over again. So the meanings of a lot of these names were very similar. Noble this, noble that, noble the other, noble blah, 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 blah. And I don't know anything about Hebrew names, so forgive me, but it appears from what I've read in the Bible, from the various different names, and there's loads of names in the Bible, there seems to have been a similar kind of thing. People would often be called something like God is this, God is that, God is with me, blah, blah, blah. So to say that those two names are sufficiently similar, I don't really think is fair, and I don't buy the rest of your argument in relation to that. Cobain's argument, I know it's not yours, but I might as well mention it, and I disputed this. He said also that Emmanuel was kind of like the Great, that kind of name. It was sort of a descriptor of Jesus, and that Jesus could be called Emmanuel because Emmanuel meant this, and that was what Jesus was. And that's kind of similar to part of what you've said, and I reject that too, because it just seems awfully vague to me. I mean, it could be anyone. I think the Isaiah prophecy is pretty weak. I think the only thing that saves it is if you assume the virgin bit actually refers to a virgin. Otherwise, it's so vague, it's ridiculous. It could have said anything. It could have said there will be a saviour called Ronald McDonald, and he'll be born of a virgin. If it's shown that Jesus was born of a virgin, we can use any sort of twisted logic we want to say that Ronald McDonald and Jesus mean the same thing, because Jesus was born of a virgin, and the prophecy refers to a Ronald McDonald born of a virgin. I'd say that's pretty strong evidence, because no one's born of a virgin before sort of, artificial insemination. No one's born of a virgin, okay? So anyone who is a one-off. that leads us on to the question of whether Jesus was born of a virgin. I mean, I'm not very convinced about that. It's a different issue, I guess, to what we're talking about. As far as the argument goes, I accept the virgin part of the Isaiah prophecy, as you've argued it out. I accept that Isaiah refers to a virgin. However, I do not accept that Emmanuel refers to Jesus. I think that is wrong. And I hope I've kind of refuted what you said about the naming thing. It's difficult to tell if you're being coherent when you're talking just like this, trying to keep it quick. Already gone on for about 5 minutes. But yeah, as far as prophecy full stop goes, I mean, clearly I'm an atheist and I reject the supernatural. I mean, frankly, I think prophecy is ridiculous. Nostradamus, whatever, it's ridiculous. The only prophecy that works is the prophecy that people engage in when they go down the bookies, you know. That's not prophecy. I don't believe in prophecy at all. Here's two theories. One guy said there'd be someone born of a virgin who'd be called Emmanuel. He'd be a descendant of David. Hundreds of years later, a bunch of followers of this bloke claimed, or this bloke himself claimed, he was born of a virgin. He was a descendant of David, and the fact that his name didn't fit didn't really mean anything. Oh, well, it still refers to him. Okay, here's the way it goes. On one hand, it actually was a prophecy, and Jesus actually was born of a virgin, which violates, you know, what we know about the real world. And Jesus was the one that, you know, Isaiah foresaw. Or an alternative theory: the followers of Jesus and/or Jesus himself just twisted the old prophecy so that they would fulfill it. I mean, I think that's an infinitely more likely scenario, but it's kind of off the point. I mean, I reject prophecy anyway. But yeah, once again, to reiterate, and I'll cut this short now, I accept that Isaiah probably that verse probably refers to a virgin. Okay, I don't accept that Emmanuel refers to Jesus. I think that is pretty weak. Okay, but anyway, thanks for the response. I mean, I really appreciate it. I'll do some more reading as ever. I'm seacraft the knowledge, like yourself, it appears. That's what matters to me, the truth.